Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Trent, and today I've got for you a drawing that I've done recently for an old character. So what has been happening is a good friend of mine, an old friend of mine, Ethan Van Sciver, kind of a rock star comic book artist. He recently had a very, very successful Indiegogo comic book campaign that earned over $250,000, I think. Very impressive. I'm very proud of my old friend. We got our start together back in 1993, 94. We each had our own comic book. He was drawing Cyberfrog. I was drawing Creed. Creed always outsold Cyberfrog. Just saying. No big deal. So obviously, like a lot of people are looking me up as well. And in fact, to give you an idea, my Facebook page, for some reason, recently has been blowing up. I'm getting 100 to 150 followers per day. They're adding me as a friend anyway. And I asked everybody, hey, where are you guys coming from? What's the deal? Why is everybody rushing me? And the response was, 80% of those people were saying, hey, I've always loved Creed. I've followed Creed back in the day, and I'm glad to find you here on Facebook. So as a little nod to those guys, I was thinking about all of you guys who miss Creed. I was thinking about you guys this whole time that I was doing this drawing. I wanted to kind of give you something that's, hey, this is an updated kind of a look at how I would draw the character. This has been 25 years ago now that this character came out as a comic book. One of the big questions that people ask is, hey, are you going to bring Creed back? Hey, can we get some new Creed now that Cyberfrog's coming back? And, that would be a really hype idea. I would love that, but I already know. This is a book that wouldn't necessarily sell the way that Cyberfrog from Ethan Van Sciver sells on Indiegogo. The biggest reason I would say is because Ethan's a rock star in comic books. He stayed in comic books and he's worked on several really top tier titles. I've been working, don't get me wrong, I'm no slouch, all right, brother. I've been making concept art for video games like World of Warcraft, League of Legends, Diablo 3, Overwatch. I'm no slouch, okay? I done good myself. In fact, I've done so good that I run an art house where we still do a lot of contract work. It keeps me very, very busy, and I keep working. I keep working hard, brother. But I'm not in the limelight. I'm not. You don't see me going to comic book conventions. You don't see me with lines of fans and things like that, and I'm cool with that. I've never really been 100% comfortable with being too much in the public eye anyway. So all that aside, here are some things that I learned about trying to do indie comic books, and the amount of work that goes into it is staggering. So if you're thinking about this, if you're thinking, hey man, I got a really cool story idea, I'd like to impart upon you some of the lessons that I learned and some of the challenges that you're going to face if you decide that you finally want to launch that awesome comic book series that you always dreamed of doing and go indie and be a mega superstar comic book rock star. The first thing that I'm going to suggest is that you put everything else down. Just stop doing everything else. Because if you can't release content at least 5 pages a week, that means a monthly book, or a book every 2 weeks, then you're going to have a really hard time meeting comic book fan expectations. This was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn because I kept drawing comic books part-time while working in video games. So if you know anything about working in games, it takes, you're at the office for about 60 or 70 hours a week, and then you come home, and if you've got any kind of a social life, forget about it, because you got to draw comic books. And you might only get 1 page a week done at a decent quality standard. When I did the last Creed series in 2007 or 2008, I was only able to generate about a page a week for those several years that I was working at Blizzard, for instance. And I was doing a Creed series, and when I released it, I really just did not get a very strong response. And the reason was that the book wasn't coming out fast enough. The content wasn't of high enough quality because I was competing with people who were doing this full time with whole teams of people. And so it became very challenging to make a competitive product, to make something that was close to the vision that I had for it because I was spread so thin. I was trying to do too many things. So the first tip that I would give you if you're going to do your own comic book is to stay focused on that. Do that one thing. Take 6 months to just work on your comic book. Don't try to make your indie game at the same time. Don't try to write novels at the same time. Don't try to work a job at the same time. Now, if you have to pay the bills, if you have to be a good father or a good mother, and you have responsibilities in your life, people that you have to take care of, do that first and stockpile all of your content. So stockpile about 6 months worth of content because that's what you're going to need. If you don't put out a book every month or every 2 weeks, people will forget about you. these days. And by the way, you have to release that content for damn near free just to get people to give it a shot. If you're a nobody, if you don't have a name in that business, you're going to have to release free content, risk it all for about 6 months of release. And that means you might take 2 years to stockpile all the content that you're going to need to be releasing for those 6 months. And that's just the reality of the business because everything's so competitive now. And other people are working full-time at this. They're teenagers or they're people in their early 20s that don't have a lot of responsibilities, no mortgage yet, no hefty car payments, no kids to take care of. And those people are the people that you're technically competing with to do that. So if I were going to make a comic book, I would stockpile, or I would say a series of novels, the same situation, I would stockpile about 6 months worth of content so that I can release updates every 2 weeks with, if not daily content, on a Twitter, a YouTube, or some kind of social media center where everybody can follow and stay excited about your stuff. Because whether you like it or not, entertainment is like popcorn now. As soon as you let people get to the bottom of the bag, they start looking for a different brand. And that's true with every series that you might create. Even video games are now service-based. So the benefit and the reason to do that is that they just never let you get bored. It's always something exciting around the corner. New skins, new stages, new levels, new challenges, new loot boxes. Yeah, baby. New stuff for you to buy, new stuff to keep you hyped about their game. And that's what you're competing with at all times. So make sure that you've got a steady stream of content, because if you're trickling out 1 page a week, people forget about you, brother, and they're very critical of the quality of that work too, because they're looking at these other guys and they're saying, well, this other comic has full color and it comes out every month, or it comes out twice a month, or whatever it is. Your book is black and white and it comes out one page a week. It's not delivering the goods. So that's the biggest thing that I would recommend. Also, I've been reading a lot of Chris Fox's books recently about writing to market, and I would also suggest that you check these books out as well and really save yourself some time, because if you're writing to a market that already exists, if you're making something that people really want, before they, like, just from looking at one image, they're like, hey, I gotta have more of this, then they'll be a little bit more patient and you can be a little bit more guaranteed that your product will sell. Now, Creed is old school. Creed came along, sure, it had flying dragons, it had morphing frogs that turned into dragons, it had floating islands, it had kids going off and venturing into a dream world, and yeah, it's kind of so old school that if it were to come out today with the same thing, you'd say, oh, those are like cliche tropes. Well, Creed was one of the first ones to do it in comic books at a time when people said, don't do that, it won't sell. This isn't superhero. Forget about it. But it did sell for its time. It was actually, I would call it a blockbuster indie comic for its era. We did have a movie license deal. We had action figures that were actually made. We had a trading cards and various other licensing deals. So it was very successful for its time. And specifically, the genre that Creed is in is a very flooded market now. I mean, Harry Potter, Percy Jackson. This is a very, very busy market with a lot of kids flying on dragons and things like that. Even though Creed was one of the originals, didn't really hold on to that. So because it disappeared for many, many years. Now, if you don't agree and you're thinking, well, that sounds awesome, that looks awesome, this book should be selling, well, go pick up the 20-book omnibus collection, the PDF that I've got over on my Gumroad. Go ahead and prove me wrong, buy those books, and I'll make more. And if you're in a position where you've never made a book before and you don't have a reputation for a certain genre or something like that, I suggest getting something out there in any way that you can, but try to write it to market. Write something that people are already looking for. Ask yourself, what do you love that other people love too? And make that. My friends Nick and Jason are writing Galaxy's Edge, and they are huge Star Wars fans, and they're really kind of writing a lot in the genre and in a style that they really love, and it's really meeting exactly what a lot of people really love to read about. So that's a perfect example of writing to market and enjoying the hell out of the process. And I know these guys. I mean, they love the genre that they're writing in. They are diehard fans for it. So it ain't a sacrifice for them to be writing a thing that sells. And that's what I would recommend to you when you're sitting down to write your own comic book that you might want to release. It'll save you a lot of headache. So yes, that's another one of my tips. Write to market, write what people want. The next thing I want to cover is, should you just work for or work with a publisher to bring out your creator-owned project? If you're thinking that maybe you could just sign with a publisher, a lot of people kind of have this impression that they just sign with a publisher and that publisher is going to promote their book and send them to conventions and make sure that the world knows about their great comic book. And that just isn't true. It's never happened for me anyway. I never experienced that. Most of the time, you sign a deal with a publisher and they just kind of don't promote it. They don't put any money or time into it. You're still going to end up doing all the lettering yourself. You're going to still end up doing almost all of the same amount of work. You're just giving away 50% of your profits. Nowadays, you don't really need a publisher. You can just go straight to it yourself, but you're going to have to learn to market. And that would be my next tip, is to learn to market your product. Learn to market it to the specific audience that's looking for it, that wants it. So if you're writing, military sci-fi comic books, market to those people. And that means making friends with other authors and other writers and other comic book artists who are doing something in a similar genre, getting them to endorse your product, going to events where those people might be, Star Wars conventions or things like that, setting up booths at places where people who already like that type of content are going. If you're doing an anime or a manga, go to the anime cons and that sort of a thing and promote your book to that audience, that specific audience. Let those people know about it. And these days you can also do targeted ads through Amazon. You can do targeted ads through various different websites. There are a good number of these. But if you're going to get into doing your own comic book, you're going to have to sink a little bit of money into advertising it as well. So you kind of have to look at it like you're going to be putting a lot of money and a lot of time into something that's a maybe. But when we look at the possible benefits of this, if you can do all those things yourself, and if you can afford to take that risk, then the rewards are exponential, because I still get paid for every copy of Creed that I sell digitally. I own the rights to Creed. And so when I put it up on Comixology, which I'm working on doing now, getting the whole run up on Comixology, when I put it up on Amazon Kindle, this is in perpetuity. I will receive a little bit of money every time somebody reads it free through Kindle Unlimited, for example. So that's going to be a really nice thing to have, 10, 20 years from now when I'm just really old, or if I ever do another Creed series, well, hey man, all those people will be very excited to see something new. And I wanted to sort of explain, what really goes into it. It's not as simple as you just make something cool and then a bunch of people flood to it. Now you might be thinking, whoa, Trent, this sounds intimidating. This is scary business. This isn't the hype, happy-go-lucky, everything's hunky-dory, happy, positive, everything's going to be awesome. You just make something awesome and everybody loves you kind of a story that Trent always tells. Well, hey man, I'm trying to save you some time here too. One of the things that I will acknowledge, though, is if you do bite-sized content or, such as Penny Arcade or comic strips that are very funny and self-contained and easily shareable, that's a good way to go for web content. A lot of people will share that. There's other ways that you could do it too, whereby you are trickling out one page a week if it's really amazing, but you got to be so good. And you're going to have to stockpile that. You're going to have a few years worth of content of backstory that's consistently been flowing out. My point is, you got to be focused. And that's always been my challenge. It's always been my problem, is the focus thing. Because it's really hard to, as you know, and as you could probably imagine, it would be really hard for you to drop your job to go and do a maybe on a comic that might sell. And that's exactly the position that somebody like me is in. I have a successful business doing contracts on Overwatch, League, all these big titles where, we're paid well enough that we do all right. And that's a really difficult gamble for me to go, a bunch of people are saying they want a Creed comic. I think I'll just drop everything, drop my other business to go and do a Creed comic. Well, that's a tall order. I'd say that's just as tall of an order as anybody else saying, hey, I'm going to drop my job and go and make a comic that might maybe sell. I do have the advantage of some people knowing what Creed is. That is huge. And I have the advantage of having a good number of people on my YouTube channel. But I would venture to say that even for me, at my skill level, And even for me, at my with my charming personality that everybody loves, it's even with those things, with my history and my brand even being known, even with Creed being known by a good number of people, it would still be really difficult for me to sell more than 500 copies a month of that comic book. So if you're thinking of doing it, you have to put it into that perspective and recognize just how hard it is to really get a successful indie series going. Now, that is also a testament to just how crazy and amazing it is that somebody like my friends, Jason and Nick are doing with their Galaxy's Edge series, and just how successful and how amazing it is that my friend Ethan is doing so well with his Indiegogo campaign. I'm inspired. I'm excited by what he's done. I wish it's something that I had the formula for, that everybody could decipher and break down. But man, a lot of it also has to do with just how much people like you. And he's a lovable dude. All those guys are. Or how good your content is really makes a big difference. And that can change all the rules. And that's true of every industry, in concept art or comic books. If you're amazing at what you do, and it's generally very well received by a lot of people, a lot of these rules don't apply. A lot of these things don't matter. Word will spread. You'll just catch on like wildfire, and other people will be talking about it. And whatever you can do to get people talking about it really works well. So that's my 2 cents on it. I'm not like, a perfect authority on it. For making a successful indie comic. It's something that I did years and years ago, and it's something that I keep an eye on. It's something that I watch. The comic book industry's gone through a lot of ups and downs. I believe it's in a transitional state right now with the whole digital age, but I think that some people are figuring it out, and they're doing really well with it. And I'm not opposed to coming back to it if the title's right, and, who knows? But if you got your own indie comic, if you have your own web comic, please share that with me. I'd love to see what you guys are making. I just love to see passionate creators do well. And if I can, I want to help passionate creators succeed. So I will share it around if I feel like it's something that I think that the audience that follows my stuff would like. And certainly, please remember to subscribe. If you like videos like this, please let me know in the comments below. And I do a Q&A every Friday here on my channel. So if there are more things that you'd like to know, please drop those questions in the comments section below. Of course, if you like my art style and you're looking at this and you're thinking, man, I just really want to be able to draw the way that Trent draws, well, I make all that available in my box sets of tutorials, which I sell over on Gumroad. I also make my brushes available, so you can really just kind of replace me. You can absorb all of my knowledge and information that I've accumulated over the years and use that for your own evil deeds. And of course, if you just like the freebies, you can go ahead and subscribe. That's cool too. And I do about 2 or 3 videos a week. It's always good times. It's always good vibes. And until next time, dudes, I'll catch y'all manyandaman. Ciao, baby. Yeah.